You ever give it to me? I don't know if you ever gave it to me. I don't know. We'll sit there and see. I think that's right. All right, it's 1:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. If that's all right. Appreciate folks being here. Really do. I know it's not necessarily a great time, but we're getting around the district. If y'all want me to come back, if y'all want me to come back, I'm happy to come back. Easter time, if y'all have a crowd of folks, but not it doesn't have to be a big crowd. Just if y'all have folks that want to talk about something, this is something we kind of proactively called and said, hey, let's set up a chance to talk. So the way I'm going to roll, if I can, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of me. I'm going to give you just a 5 or 6 minute Texas legislature, because most people know what the county government does. Unfortunately, most people know way too much about what the federal government does, and very few know about what the state government does. Tell you some of the issues that we have dealt with or deal with, just to give you some things to think about. And then I'll stay here and answer questions until y'all get tired of answering questions. When y'all get tired of being here, you're welcome to get up and leave. You know, hurt my feelings just a little bit. I don't have feelings, but that would be the next little while. So anyway, so first thing first, I'm James Crane. I am in your state rep. I've got 14 counties. I live in Wichita Falls. I'm gonna give you my personal, most important person. I've been married to my wife at least for 36 years. She's born and raised in Wichita Falls. I actually was born in Atlanta, grew up in Tulsa, and moved to Wichita. It's there basically since I was 13. I did go out to East End and we lived in Fort Worth for a while. Professionally, I started as a banker. Don't hold that against me. I spent 11 years in commercial lending, and then when I was 33, I bought an 11-man welding shop. And I bought several companies since then, and that's what I do to make money. So we've got about 175 employees now, making different things in 3 different companies. That's my day job. And then it's been 14 years ago, I lost my head and decided I want to spend 70% of my time on my job representing folks. And it has been fun for the most part. It is. State representative was a really fascinating thing. The role of state government is really fascinating. And so I mentioned my wife. I actually have 6 boys. I always get a little bit of a there. What's that? Yeah. I've told my brothers, I've got brothers, and a couple of them have girls, and I said, yeah, I've got 6 boys to worry about. You have all the boys to worry about. They don't think that's funny. They don't think that's funny, but for a while I was going down, we adopted them. So anyways, that will tell you what I've done with a lot of my time. But then politically stuff, I've went in and been represented now for 14 years. It has been a long time. Some of the stuff that I've worked on, I've worked a lot on child welfare, the CPS system. We've done a lot of pretty major changes there. It is operating better, but not perfectly. Always, anytime somebody, whether it's sheriff or, sometimes when you're dealing in the hardest areas, it's never going to be perfect. But is it better? And that's, in fact, one of the things I never do in government is when I'm working on something, I never say it to be F word, fix. What were y'all thinking? No, I never say the word fix, because most things in government are broken. They just need to work better. And when we say fix, there's this idea that somehow you're going to fix something that's broken, all of a sudden it's perfect. Where you're trying, what I feel like, maybe I'm setting too low a bar, but I feel like my job is to make it better. Whether it's a water issue, whether it's child welfare, which I've worked on those a lot. I've done a lot of things on parental rights. We've got a fair amount with the military. The state really doesn't have a huge role in military, but Chevron being such a big part of the district, or at least in the eastern part of the district, Chevron such a big employer. A lot of things that interface between the state and federal government, which things can be done there. And I've worked a lot on healthcare costs, which really what I'm spending a lot of time on now. Don't know from the audience that I'm happy where you spend a ton of time on that. A lot of times, my personal belief, and the reason I spend so much time on it, literally we spend twice as much on healthcare as the rest of the first world for the same or worse results. There is no part of your life that you're getting ripped off on more than healthcare. Most of that is a political problem. Most of that is with the Democrats and Republicans. Most of it is just simply a political problem that we have messed up the market. We can talk more about that if I want to, but we'll talk about other more pressing things. But as a as an employer of a fair number of people. I don't, and by the way, I don't consider the employer is not the one getting ripped off because employees pay their medical costs, employers don't. Even if you're writing, even if as an employer you're writing the check, the only reason you're writing it is because you have an employee. And as I told somebody, I don't care whether I'm paying $60,000 or $20,000 worth of benefit costs or just $80,000 in tax. That's what you're paying for that person. The healthcare costs, our healthcare system is ripping off the individual. It's not really ripping off businesses. So that's enough of that. Those are some of the issues that I worked on a lot. Texas legislature really does have a pretty strong role. I tell everybody, the problem is we spend about 90% of our time focusing on what Donald Trump says or what's going on in Washington. And really and truly, how much of a practical impact does that have on your life? But we spend all of our political on that and screaming on that. And I mean, we as a society, by the way, I scream. I actually make, for you know, who follow me on social media, I almost never comment on national stuff. It's not that it's not important, it's just I want to focus on stuff that I actually have some amount of control. And by the way, I don't have that much control. So I'm a state rep, so I'm going to talk about the state government. State government meets 140 days every 2 years. It's the only time law can change in Texas. 140 days every 2 years, and it is every odd year. So we met in 2015, excuse me, 2020. I'm missing a lot. Wow. We met in 2025. We did stay for a couple of extra special sessions, which they call them special, but they're not that special. But it's actually 30 days that the governor can call. You can be there and you can only hear a certain number of things. But essentially, it's 140 days every 2 years. And then you go back and you live. That's the difference. Like in Congress, a lot of times they're congressmen. We have good folks in Congress sometimes, but they're never here because they always have to be in D.C. It's different. I am literally, and I still have people I'll walk into them I try not to go to the grocery store, but I walk in, in town and go, hey, you're in town. And I'm like, I'm almost always in town. Like I'm always, if y'all leave me on, it is, it's about an hour and 40 minutes, but that's where I am. I'm not in Austin very much. Every time I leave Austin, I go, I'm leaving Austin and going back to the free part of Texas. Or just I'm going back to Texas. So, anyway, so the state deals with really a lot of the big issues. When you think about the things that actually affect you, much of them are either done at the state level or in many cases, the framework is put in place for the cities, counties, school districts. We're putting frameworks in. Sometimes we get those frameworks correctly or the funding. Sometimes we don't get them as correct, right? And so those are the kind of issues hopefully we could talk about. The top issues is to give you some feed, and I'm really pretty close. I'm probably 4 or 5 minutes away from asking for y'all's questions. It'll be a real short meeting. Okay, I'm kind of using food for thought of what we do. Property taxes, anybody ever have property taxes issues here about it? Yeah. So we do set the rules again for property taxes, but the property taxes aren't going, they're going to the locals, right? But we do set the rules and we recapture. It's a pretty complicated system. We have done a lot of what we call buy-downs of property taxes over the last, probably 14, and I'm not counting that with me, but really since I've been there, we've done a lot of property tax buy-downs. And when I say that, where does the state get most of its revenue? The revenue that we spend, the $300 billion budget that we spend, where do we get that? Sales tax, okay? The property taxes go to school districts and cities and locals, okay? We have taken now $51 billion, almost 15% of the state budget, and have bought down local property taxes. You haven't noticed it, but I promise if it hadn't done it, the property tax would be even higher. But like we do a homestead exemption, for instance. Most of y'all's homestead exemption, or all of your homestead exemptions, for those of y'all that have homes, they've gone up from very little to $140,000. The school, everybody who was getting that money is still getting the same amount of money because we used sales tax revenue instead of spending it on other state priorities. We bought those in. That makes sense? So we're using sales tax revenue to buy down property taxes. So that's some of the stuff with property taxes. Happy to talk more about that. We do a whole lot of stuff on education. That gets, I was on the Pub Ed committee last session. These guys are rolling their eyeballs because everybody, how many state reps are there, by the way? Quick quiz. Anybody? More senators?
More reps or senators, I don't know the number.
Yeah, so there's 150 reps. Each of us have 200,000 people approximately that we represent. Basically, it's 150 divided by the total population of Texas. Right at 30 million people, so it's right about 200,000 people. There's 31 senators. By the way, I don't know if it was intentionally, I think it was maybe intentionally done that way. If you look it up, but that's also the number of Psalms and Proverbs, if you ever forget that. It is. It really is. That's a true thing. I'm thinking Proverbs. Yeah. Okay. So it really works the same way Congress does, except we pass bills. But that was funny. It has to pass both houses in identical form, and then the governor signs it, it'll be toasted. Actually, or he doesn't sign it, and it still goes into law. Which that's happened to me twice. I'm like, really? Wasn't good enough to sign? I guess it's not anyway. Okay, so that's some of the things. A lot of water and electricity, we make the rules, but again, in water, if you look at it, the state makes the rules of who has the water, but at the end of the day, it's the locals that are actually responsible for getting the water to people. Which is not necessarily, I'm not saying that's the best system, I'm just telling you where it is. Don't look at me and go, we are sorry for doing it that way. I didn't set it up that way. But that is the way it is. Essentially, who has water rights is set up by the state, but the responsibility is on the locals to get water. There are things that we have done, putting now $1 billion a year aside for water infrastructure to try to bring more water in, but it still comes down to the municipalities that are responsible for getting it to their citizens. The electric grid is a big part, and after what happened during Winter Storm Uri about 4 years ago, it's become we've passed a lot of bills on that. One of the things, I'm guessing that we might talk data centers, one of the things that was done last session is any new major project, and certainly all the data centers qualify as a major project, has to have interruptible energy. What does that mean? Everybody worries about the grid getting stressed, and you're also worried because these new projects are coming in on electricity. Well, when the power is spiking, everybody's need for power is spiking, these new projects have to be interruptible, meaning we can say, the grid can say, you're off the grid, and they have that backup power. What that means is they are not threatening your usage, the security of the grid. In fact, I would argue because of that, they're really kind of helping because there's more production that is being put online and we can interrupt them. But you're shaking your head and I'm happy to be trained. That's not true?
I think so.
Okay. But they are all interrupted, correct? Okay. They're gonna have to have a way to have more power put on, but just all that power put on yet, no. But they do all have to have energy backup if they want to use it. So, by the way, I've been on the talking so far. This is not going to be good if I don't get feedback because I learn stuff every time. And then you might actually learn stuff because I have a different perspective from y'all. I have access to different information. And I'm not saying mine's better or worse, but access is different. And we'll have some good talking about that. But there has been a lot of focus on the grid to make sure that it is reliable because that is scary. It's really a little bit weird how dependent we are on electricity and how fragile it is. Because we're really, if you turn off our water or electricity in 3 days, we're third world country. All of us. And it's, yeah. All right, so we did some things on state national security. We've been doing a lot of stuff trying to address the illegal immigration issue. That is mostly being done now at the federal level. So anyway, I can go through, I'm going to open up, I can go through some of the bills that I have filed, but I'll open up to you all for questions now before we go.
And real quick, before questions start, I want to pass this around. Break this out newsletter pretty much weekly during the session, just so you can keep track of what's going on in the session if you want. If you're new school, you can scan the QR code. If you're old school, you can fill out the paper sheets behind it. Either way, we'll get it in the system and get you the newsletter if you like that.
And Bob Payton is my district director. He is in Wichita Falls all the time, even during session. The only time I'm difficult to get a hold of is during session. During session, after the first 45 days, it is kind of ridiculous. There's 1,100 bills that get to the floor. You do the math, what that does to you. Committee hearings, I mean, literally last year, I was on two of the longer committees, and almost every Monday night, we would finish public health at 2 o'clock. I would be 2 a.m. I would be in public ed the next morning at 8 o'clock, and we would almost never finish until 2 a.m. And I am too old to do that back to back. I mean, and yeah, there was the funniest was when we did the school choice, we didn't finish until 6:30 a.m. So we started, I went to sleep or I got finished at 2 a.m. Monday night, Tuesday morning. Had to get to the Capitol at 8. We were there until 6:30 a.m. the next day. And I had a bill on the floor at 10. And I'm trying to have a debate from the front mic with somebody at the back mic. And finally he's like, I'm sorry, I can't understand. Can I pull the bill down? I can't understand. I literally couldn't think. I was that tired. But anyway, that's all to say. Pretty easy to get a hold of, except for those 3 or 4 months during session. There's 5 months, but the first 30 days are real slow. So that's why it's so in. Yes, ma'am.
The newsletters on your site, your house site.
The newsletters are on the House website, aren't they, Bob? You double check that. You can probably check right now.
I don't believe they are. We can,
Are they on our website?
we have some on our website and we've got a system now.
We do post them all on Facebook. I don't post a ton on Facebook, but every time we do a newsletter. But again, we do once a week during session. When it's not during session, you will maybe get one a month, maybe one every 2 months, because there's, like I'm working on a newsletter for the data centers. Like, because that's been such an issue, I'm working on a newsletter, but you will not get a lot of spam from me, and you won't get any, please send money in here or any of that stuff. It is, but the good thing about it is when you get it, it's an easy time to reply to it, and it will get to my staff, and it will get to maybe if you've asked for feedback. So, okay. Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Okay. What are the, yes, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, thank you. Thank you for what you do. Sure. I know that people probably think it's only death all the time,
No.
and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
With that said,
With that said, wham. With that said,
how big is your jurisdiction? How far out this goes?
it's 14 counties. It goes,
So we'll be your last county.
Fisher's further west, isn't it? Or not?
Sounds.
I should know that.
It's not.
No, I'm sorry. But
Children's is not in this district.
no, Chillicothe, mostly not in the district, but the one south of that.
South, like going a little further west.
And I will say this, like all of us, like Dustin Burrows has everything west of me. We'll try to take care of it in-house. There's only like 15 reps that handle rural Texas anymore.
We don't take care of stuff. We take care of what's right.
Right, but, well, I'm just saying, try to take care of each other like if we need to. So anyway, good.
Water,
Yes, ma'am.
water. Really good enough drinking of water to the citizens of London, Texas.
Okay.
How did we get on that squeaky bill that Corpus Christi got on $750 billion for this water today?
You know what? You
What do
mentioned,
we do with small towns to be heard? Because I'm with 2,200 people, it only means difference to people in River City with these seats a lot of times more than 22,000 and 220,000. We need to be heard.
okay. That's a great question. And I think it speaks to how government works, which is one, your squeaky bill analogy is a perfect one. You got to squeak. I think the bigger thing, before you squeak, what's the plan? What do you need? Like I'm rep, so tell me what solution you have. Because even if you say, well, we just need money, well, what's the money for?
We
Like,
don't have a solution. We have historical breakdown. We have historical infrastructure. We can speak with families. We've been on water more often than we have not, because our water is not, our businesses have to close, and our schools have to close. You're in a dire, just, I mean, you're not near as bad as Powell, because there's gonna be a, there's really something nice. Okay, they're gonna be way off, and I'm no different from your district.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and so let me say this, we need to have a meeting and probably a meeting with y'all, Kroll, and some other people.
Well, we have an engineer firm that we hired, and they're putting it together, and they're constantly, and the one that Senator Perry was talking about, we've been through it. The council before us that we've been talking, we're right on the verge of getting that. So as far as a plan goes, the plan is we update it, and we want to amplify everything.
I saw 35 million number.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, same company.
Yeah.
So as far as, you know, you say you need a plan, well, what we've done is we hired PhD, and they are doing. The first thing is they're doing, it's no cost, it's $200. For a program, we have put in as a policy, all that does is put anyway on to treat our water. We had infrastructure for 6,000 people, and we had 200 people using it.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So it's saying, hey, it's chlorine and chloramine. Our concept of chlorine is being eaten up because of what's inside the pipes. So that's what we're doing.
Well, I'm assuming if y'all met with Charles Perry, so Charles, I mean, Senator Perry, because you need to know what people are working on, right? Because the more, Senator Perry is the chair of the water, basically the water committee in the Senate. He is,
So that ain't pretty good for us.
what's that?
I said, that ain't very good for us.
No, that's very good.
Well, it's not-
I mean, in terms of,
Involved in the shutdown of the Georgia Pacific plant out here.
Perry was,
Yeah,
Charles Perry was.
yeah.
He said he's not. Why would he want to be involved in shutting that plant down?
It's in Sweetwater.
Oh, did it move to Sweetwater?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, I would doubt he would do that, but I don't know. But I think he would, there's no reason for me not to think that he and I, that he represents, that he would want to address the water issue. This may be the way he gets back in your good graces. I mean, I will say this, I doubt very seriously that a state senator impacted a corporate decision. I don't know how he would do that, but he might. I don't know. But regardless, let's talk about the water, because I don't know.
I'm gonna ask the mayor, did you reach out to Perry? Did you guys meet with Perry?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know, like, I went down, I took them down to the Red River Water Authority, which, and to Austin, because they didn't know who to talk to, and I'm like, well, then, come on. Let's go down there, and I will walk you through that process, because I'm supposed to be able to try to help interface. And by the way, here's my cell number, 940-636-7963. 940, you're here, 940-636-7963. You have it. You already have it, folks. 940-636-7963. So I just need to be communicated with. That's why I come down there, because some people don't they don't know. It's like, now we can start to dialogue. I went down, the hard work begins.
Okay, John, if we're in 2020, I'll find a date.
From federal government, state government.
I'm not even sure.
Okay.
Okay. But the problem is, these little bitty shrinking towns, we can't afford the $2 million to match that 10%.
Yeah. So let's talk about,
It's all great, it's not needy, oh, dang, these streets, but then, we're in a nice, streets.
So let's talk about data centers, because I think data centers, people freak out about data centers.
Before we switch over.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about.
Because I think Senator Thomas.
And Senator Perry's defense, we were coming up on a deadline, applying for a grant, and it hit the office from Jennifer McNabb, his water guy, Jennifer McNabb, they made everything that they could, and we hit that deadline. So he is having,
Charles for a long time, I served in the house and I'm like, you know, he's an accountant by trade, but he's gonna try to help where he can. That's, I don't know. No, I appreciate it. So anyway, so yeah, we can try to get that, but the money does help us. And the data centers are a potential for money. So I've had people ask me, are you for data centers or are you against data centers? It ain't that simple.
So much short.
That's right. I am conditionally for data centers. The condition upon they're good neighbors. And I can tell you, I met with the governor's office and I said, here's where the good neighbors. Because I've talked to the people that are against data centers, because I've got, 14 counties, and I think there's at least 3 that are absolutely going in, and there's probably 12 others that are talked about going in. Because all of these are, you know, they're all over the place, and yet no difference being moved except in Allegheny. I think Haskell's is pretty far. Wichita Falls, the land's been bought, and no dirt turned yet. You know, that one's real far along, I think, further along than London. To me, what a good neighbor is, and I'm going to read, I've got 10 of them that I literally handed to the governor's office, and I'm about to, with a trip to DC, which I never go to DC, but with about 80 different state reps and senators, and so we compared notes last week about data centers. And it's pretty much in agreement what needs to happen. Oh, there we go. Sorry. All right. Grid connection, they have to be interrupted. Because, and that's mostly already the case in SB6 from last session, but you have to be able to turn them off because we don't want to threaten the grid. The water connections, water is obviously a huge issue. You don't want somebody coming in and taking a bunch of water. Flip side is, if a data center comes in and they need water, I promise you, the data center is not going to go use water for people. You're going to get, the state is going to make sure that data centers lose water before people lose water. You know why? Data centers don't vote. They don't vote. And by the way, nobody's going to, you know what I mean? It's just common sense, like with electricity. You're going to turn the data center on if you've got somebody going to freeze here and you're going to lose it. That's just the way it works. So I don't believe that, I believe they should all use closed loop systems. Like, for instance, in Wichita Falls, I mean, I walked through that project quite a bit. It's a closed loop water system. It's a $22 billion project, which is 3 times more than the total property value in Wichita County. And they're going to use the water of 150 homes. But it's a closed loop system, right? They're using the water to cool. When you only have the thing will be water for about 300 employees, full-time employees that will be there. However, I think it should be required because you can have a data center come in and not use a closed loop system. However, from a fear standpoint, what is the likelihood that somebody's going to go spend $5 billion to put a data center here and not have a good answer to what about the water? They might, but I would argue that they're probably not that stupid. That if they're going to put something here, they might actually be the ones that end up investing some money to make sure their water is dependent. Might. I'm not telling you they shouldn't. I think as a state, we need to make sure that they will, to the extent we can. Noise pollution is a big issue. It's a big issue with the Bitcoin mining because a lot of times they're like steel buildings. The data centers by and large are soundproof except for the air conditioning on the top. But I think they should have noise pollution. I definitely think they should have. We have one that's supposed to go in Archer City, and they're putting it right next to homes. I think you should be able to do that. And if you put it anywhere near, you should have to put vegetation, so that you know you didn't move out of the county to look at a data center right next to you, a commercial property right next to you. People are concerned about the roads. If they tear up roads during construction, I agree with that, and I think we need to make sure enough of that money stays to take care of the roads. But I do go back and forth. Do you want economic development or do you not want economic development? Because you can't have economic development. I've had people in Wichita Falls go, we're going to go get restaurants. I don't know what to tell you, man. So man, it's over getting in a restaurant for a while. There's a couple thousand extra people here building a data center. But there's also a lot of good in that. And I don't know which one's better. Sometimes I want to be left alone. Anyway, and also from a government standpoint, I want to make sure that a lot of the money stays in rural Texas. Because if you look at the way our tax code works, You will do very well if you end up with a data center here and that the money will stay here, but then it starts to flow back to the state pretty quick. And that's something really that we almost have to do because you can't have, you've been lawsuit after lawsuit, you can't have one school district that's getting $40,000 per student and another getting 10. And everybody says it's robbing, but that's true, but anyway. All right, so y'all understand what I'm saying on the data centers? We do need to make sure, and because they're building in counties and with very few restrictions on counties, it is hard for us to do anything to stop. However, almost all of them have to go onto the grid, and we can make this a requirement of going on the grid. All of the things that we talked about, the government can say, yep, all of that stuff has to happen before you go on the grid. I don't know what happens. Somebody said, yeah, we're going to supply our own energy. Because we don't, the state government can't stop it right now. We can't even change the law until we get back in January. I'll get that. I guess the state legislature, I'm not legislator, I have no authority to do anything other than help communicate. I can change the law, but that won't happen until January next year.
That's why there goes so many here, because they don't have regulation.
No, I agree.
Not regulation. You got one down, one New Jersey, you got one on Seattle.
Who does?
My little brother, he works for a company, that's what they do.
Right.
And the reason why we went to New Jersey, it's got two things, regulation and we want to do in Texas. And my concern is moving out here to rural Texas where we live. I'm from the Metroplex of Richmond, very fascinating. 50 acres old, like about 10 or 12 acres we built since 1967 on a board. We don't have any out here. Asking you a question, is there anything in the pipe coming down the road someday for us to build reservoirs out here? Because even if we get $35 million, our elects up there 20%, unless they hit some more wells, you gotta have the supply to run through the line first. So I mean, any kind of, I know the next place has to drink a lot of water, Fort Pierce has to drink a lot of water, but if we're gonna build these data centers, our community's gonna start growing by 4,000 to 5,000 people. And we're gonna need a reservoir out here, bigger than the Greenville or what we have, to support some of these.
Is there any water in the ground here?
It's very good.
It's good. Well, I mean, because some places like Wichita, they have drinkable water, but there is a lot of very, very, very salty water under there. Good.
Cattle down here, we're ranked, we all ranch it. But the city, the irrigation wells that's been filled with this county alone, I lost all my rainbow water. Rainbow water used to be at 60 or 80 feet deep. Now, if you want windmill, you better be ready to drill at 120, 150 feet, which used to be irrigation water. Now we got to go 300 feet to get irrigation water.
So I mean,
Water table is what look.
if you put it, I mean, we need to go follow up with Charles. But I think to answer your question on reservoirs, the best I know, the chance of building a reservoir is not high. The chance of finding another source of water through a pipeline, I think, is quite high. One of the things that Perry is working on is trying to get, Charles Perry is working on is trying to get water from other states to get more of a source, because then that will be available. And if the pipeline can come anywhere close to here, that's the most secure water that there is. Because honestly, the terrible thing about building lakes is you lose all the evaporation. You lose literally 4 times, you go to lake out here, you lose 4 times more water to evaporation than usage, and it's still itself. So anything we can do to try to, protect the water we have. And by the way, you never actually use all your water because it goes away. It's just location, location, location. Location and funding. So we just need to have a way to get water here.
Let me put
Yes.
this in perspective.
Yeah.
That single digit percentage that we have on our water transfer, the Greenbelt Lake, 33 million gallons of water comes from 500 days for the lake. It's to us. It's 15 days for us to get there. Yes, sir. 15 days for it to get here. When it gets here, it gets into our little,
And that's your sole source of water.
very sad infrastructure. And
And not enough pressure.
it's not under pressure, and it's, like I said, for more often than not, it's has to be on board. And so, I mean, we're in a real sad situation here. We need help. And I'm afraid that, I'm afraid to say, I can knock on your door about 24 times a day.
I just get it. Hey, there's a reason I gave you my number. I will say, where was it? Because he started texting all the time, and I said, look, you tell me, and I'll tell you, text me every time you're in a bullhouse.
Oh,
No, only one person.
no, that's it.
I am serious. Because it was a Red River issue, end of the Red River.
We still get our, I'm gonna say that, but we still get, I asked you to get our, years, this and that.
I understand, but you asked about the squeaky wheel, and I just gave you permission to be a squeaky wheel. All you have to do is say, all you have to do is say, go on notice again, I will rely. But what it will do is that I will be a squeaky wheel, and it will force me to be a squeaky wheel other places to try to see if we can get a resolution to it. So that's part of the self-discipline I get for me. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I know you talked about the closed systems, the finance facilities, about. My concern is the amount of water that's being consumed, especially in the solar farms, between here and Children's, and that plant in Children's. Yes, once they get installed, they have a closed water system. They use an enormous amount of water. We heard from the gentleman we had at the Raptor Day in Iowa Park having lunch, and his well went dry because whoever was building that solar farm sucked the water off his farm, his county. So my concern is, we're kind of no man's land here. We live in the county, so the chili property. So we're seeing every time water goes down, there's like a chili property across the road, has a switch, but not everybody has that, especially right in the county. My concern is, I brought them out. These are the coal-fired gas and nuclear plants in Texas. Where's the hole?
So the,
Surround us.
those are coal fire.
The coal fire, gas fire, and nuclear plants in Texas. What is filling in between are the wind turbines and the solar plants. And because of government subsidy from the federal government, they exist. We were without electricity for 14 days in the storm again. 14 days I had no well water because I didn't have any electricity.
You have to bring it.
My concern is what happens with the Metroplex exploding like it is down in Austin and San Antonio and even in Maryland. We're going to be power shepherds here. You can run all the transmission lines you want, but if you don't have a source, we can light the gas from Oklahoma from a different AC/DC type. There used to be one in Lake Pauline. The plant was shut down because it was coal fired. Then there was Opal Union, which AEP shut down and sold off. So we don't have any way to get emergency power if we need it. It's going to force a lot of people here in our county to go to power generation of their own. Solar's not going to be the answer. And I don't think Twins the answer sitting there doing the solar.
It's not dispatchable. I mean, the wind is great, you just out there.
So we're going to have, in addition to this water issue, we're going to have a power issue. Yes, I know you said those data centers were supposed to be interruptible. Are they going to truly shut down a multi-million dollar plant for backup interruptible storage and then bring it back up at least $5 to $10 million in that cycle?
That is, so, I mean, to everybody that I've talked to in the bill I read, that is what is required on any of these new projects, is they have to be interruptible. But just because you're interruptible doesn't mean they're going to be interrupted. They just have to switch to their backup power. So the one in Wichita's building is huge diesel generator, but they can turn it on. They don't want to. But it doesn't matter if they have to.
It's not going to be so. So my concern is they're not going to, there's going to be an issue.
Well, I mean, the issue is if you freeze somebody to death, that is a much bigger issue than turning off one of those places, politically and financially. They just can't do it. I mean, it's my understanding.
I used to work in actually some wholesale levels across the nation, and I saw what happened in Chicago when they did that property first.
Yeah.
But the people who were impacted got very little, and it became all political.
Yeah.
So we need to be very careful when we have these big facilities coming on in Amarillo, in Vernon, in Children's. There's nothing in Cumberland County.
No, I agree. The only thing, I mean, I'm just looking at the political, and I'm not trying to take, I'm not I really, I promise you, I'm not pro data center and a data center. But when I look at it and I say, I don't know, I mean, I've been in Wichita Falls a long time. And Wichita Falls, y'all probably don't consider rural as a big city, okay? But by and large, compared to the other actual big cities, we're very rural and we've been struggling for having any kind of economic growth. This is the first thing in my nearly 60 years that I have ever seen that gives us a chance of having actual economic prosperity out in the rural Texas. Okay? And so, if that makes me a little bit pro data center, I am, because I think it could revolutionize the school funding, the road funding, the water infrastructure, all of that. Because the money is stupid. It's crazy. I mean, it's just, it is unbelievable how much money is pouring into there. Do I know whether it's going to last more than 3 weeks? No. It might be I don't know, but it is an opportunity, I think, for rural Texas, because I promise you, if there is a data center out there that somebody spent $5 billion on, they're going to want to make sure the electric grid is stable over in that area. You already partner with them. They can't, I was going to use a word I shouldn't use. They can't hose you and get away with it. So I'm not, I want good neighbors. But if you have these big guys in here, they have a reason to actually care what goes on out here, which gives you more political clout. You know, if you're right, 2,000 people are not the same as 200,000 people.
And it's not enough.
I literally got told by a person in Wichita Falls when we were close to out the water, they said, and almost hit him in the mouth. And I've never sworn while I was there, they said, well, they closed down cities since the beginning of time when they were running out of water. You know, like, you know what? People died of polio too. Like we can move we can move water around. We can move water around. I don't think with I guess Sheriff asked about the reservoirs take so long. The federal, I just don't think that's a practical answer, but moving water with pipelines, maybe from a better place, I think is a much more likely answer, I believe. And I think really, I would say we need to press this hard because I don't know how long, I mean, I'm not announcing Charles, I don't know how long Charles will stay here. But when your state senator is head of that area, this would be the time to get a plan in place. And you already have a plan. This is the time for BSP to go to me, the BSP to go to Charles, and say, we have to get this done. Yes, ma'am.
I answered it about being a shooter. Phone number. But what's your best suggestion for us to do that? We were talking about this, we call, do we want many of the possible? How do we get on speaking with what's the best?
I don't presume to know who's, you know, I mean, you got mayor here, you got sheriff here, I don't know who all,
City council.
city council. It would be good to be on the same page in what you're asking for and have a consistent message. Small, really, say that in rural Texas, we talk all the time in some of the West Texas delegation, like we got to outkick our weight. You know, it's actually probably down to 11 or 12 West Texas reps, and because it's based on population, right? And so you have to stay together. And so, you know, to the extent, I would also look at, does your water needs and the needs of Chillicothe, are those similar? If they are, that's not 2,000 people, now it's more. How big of a regional group can we put together to try to do this? Because, yeah, if it's just one and you're screaming, that doesn't have much political power. Because, by the way, if we talk about Dustin Burrows, if we go just a little west, he happens to be the Speaker of the House. So if this affects some of his districts, that gives us more political influence to get something done.
We're not the only ones in this situation. No.
So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know the pipelines here. This is where representative is. I can tell you how to get through the state government to the best I can. But I don't understand the water situation. I can get to know it better. But you guys already know it better. I'm trying to tell you, like, if there is a regional cooperative that all of a sudden gives up Dustin Burrows, Charles Perry, Mindy, now all of a sudden we're working, right? Now, Speaker of the House is Speaker of the House is a pretty big deal, right? Like if it affects his living, I'm not saying not everybody's equal, but some of them are equal than others. Little animal farm illiterate reference there. So I think if we can figure out whether it's a regional issue, that makes it a lot easier to take care of. Then we have everybody asking for the same plan. Sometimes that's hard. I know sometimes people only get together, everybody wants to be, then you be.
People in Poland on board, if I've spoken to them
Okay.
about this safety question. Like I said, they're in the line, they're about first. Peace out.
So if you could make, or somebody here could make a list of who that might impact, I don't know if, I'm sure your consultants have a map. I mean, I'm a visual learner. If they could draw a map of where you're getting the water, who that agreement's with, is the agreement happening? I'm sorry I said on that, by the way. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how many natural lakes are there, Chase?
How many natural lakes? A half of one. Caddo's, Caddo, if you call it a lake or the dam, there's not one. Yeah, there's not one. The only ones are built. However, there are a lot of people that get their water from underground. And again, to the extent we can, and we're looking, and Charles is very familiar with this. We looked at a lot of different things and maybe putting some of this water underground and then you move it with pipes. Because again, if you're losing 4 times more to evaporation than you are to usage, and then can the city close? If you look at what Wichita Falls has done, you know, when it goes out of the wastewater plant, it goes back into the water plant. I don't know if y'all are doing that. That would cost too much.
Talking about this will be a short, yes, but economic growth is wonderful, and I love this for our town. But our infrastructure can't handle it. It cannot handle it. And not necessarily the water, the sewer.
Yeah.
And that is a big problem. So here.
Most of that is addressed by money, right?
Yes, here lies again.
Which is why I have to look at the data centers as a possible,
Yeah.
but we have to engage with them.
Yeah.
I can tell you, it's really funny. Like half of the guys I met with in DC last week, and this year, they were state reps and senators. There were like 80 of us that went up there. The only time this ever happened is all the time I've been there, just trying to communicate. But I talked to a lot of them. It was kind of fun that you don't see it normally. I'm in the district, and a lot of them are just going, we don't want an area. We don't want an area because they've been yelled at by their people. And I've been yelled at. I've been yelled at by people saying, we don't want them. But I did sit down and say, okay, well, tell me what it is that you don't want. Well, it's not that I don't want them. I'm just scared about my electricity. I'm scared that I don't like water. I don't want to be looking at it. They're, you know, I'm concerned about the roads. Well, if we could address those, it would be good. Oh yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, let's talk about it. I just look at data centers as with the real estate taxes they bring in, it can perhaps, if done right, address the vast majority of those because the dollars are so staggering. I mean, it almost certainly won't be fully built out, $22 billion. Okay, but if it's fully built out, it's $200 million a year in just tax revenue. No, it's not. Yeah, $200 million a year in tax revenue. Which is, if it's just a little $2 million property, it's $2 million a year in extra revenue, and very few people associated with it after it's built. And I'm not trying to promote those. I'm just trying to say, let's consider that it could be, when I hear all this, I gotta have money, the state can do some, but it's really hard for the state to take money out of one district and pull it over to another district because it's just, you just can't get the votes to do that. There's not, the good or bad thing about the state, there's not nearly the kind of pork that you have in the federal budget. You know, where people are writing $30 million checks and $40 million checks different places.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
so, when I was a kid growing up back in the sixties, I was one of the person in the room that was living in the farm at the time. We were, we had drank gym water from water there. And, so they started this thirsty water thing and they built that lake up there in Clarendon and everything. And it's probably about 65 or 66, somewhere like that. And, our water problem was supposedly solved. Everybody thought it was. And
Our problem never solved when you move to a desert, like
Well,
Wichita Falls or any of those places. You're always going to have that issue.
so then I saw that in 1975, the depth of that lake up in Clarendon was 70 feet water depth. So now it's
That's, this dry lake there. And, so in 1974, they built this state park out here. And, they were supposed to build a big lake that went along with it.
Copper Reefs.
No, it was gonna be out there by Concord Lake. And, so, and the salt water, you know, runs into there were salt water springs, and they run into the Red River, and they run down to Lake Texoma. And, those stripers fish down in Lake Texoma, they like that salty water.
Yeah.
And so,
What's the question?
a lot of people think that salty water running to Lake Texoma is what killed the building this lake here.
It may happen, a lot of places in West Texas, they're too salty to build.
No, they wanted salt water down there.
Right.
For the fishing purpose. So they didn't, they never started on the lake. I guess it was killed during the Clinton administration.
Well, let me just finish. I will stick around and answer questions as long as y'all want to stay, as long as I don't just, got a 5 o'clock. That's all I got.
Yeah.
What's that?
I want to like it.
No, I knew it was gonna lecture, I just didn't know anything before the 5 o'clock, but I mean, I will stay here and talk, I don't want y'all to fit the trap. The main thing, this needs to be a sort of dialogue. Most of this stuff is really hard to get done. It really is. If you want to get it done, it takes a lot of work. I'll use an example when I was school study that I sent out for just hold on to any questions on school stuff. But I got just to show how it works or doesn't work. As I say all the time, representative democracy is really hard. There's a really easy form of government. It's called a dictatorship. They won't ask your opinion. You don't get, but if you want a hard form of government, this is it. Superintendent kept telling me, and I'll use Brad on Superintendent Burke. He was like, we need to fix the STAR test. We need to get rid of the STAR test. I said, Brad, homeschool down mostly. We public school with 4 or 6. I said, but even if I weren't, I don't understand. What is it that you want done? Well, we don't like the STAR test. I said, we don't. And I said, well, Brad, we're going to measure performance. But if you have some places where you get kids are failing, we're not going to do no measurements. So that's off the table. What do you think we should measure? He tells me, and I said, okay, and we work back and forth. And I said, because I'm telling you not just what I think, but what I think can pass, right? Like I could say, oh yeah, I agree. Let's get rid of that, file the bill, and it wouldn't go anywhere. I know it wouldn't go anywhere. It shouldn't go. But I said, okay, well, what I need you to do is you need to get rid of school districts from around the state, just like you, and see which of the ideas that you think are good, they think are good too. Because, it just, James thinks it, and Birkenhead ISD thinks it. But Brian had trouble passing, right? But he did, and he got with about 70 different school districts that are small, small and medium all around the state. And I thought it was going to be ready to go. This is in 2023. And I said, Brad, you got it ready? I need to get it written out so that I can get it in law. I said, I need y'all to tell me what it is that you want. I'll take it and I carry it through. Well, he tells me right before session, well, we can't get agreement among ourselves. Right? We can't get agreement among ourselves. I said, well, if y'all can't get agreement among yourselves, no chance I can get agreement here. And so I said, well, let's work on it next time. And so fast forward 2024, I said, okay, right, I got it. Yeah, I think we're getting close. He worked it and worked it and worked it. He came up with an idea. I wrote the bill. Let's happily ever after, right? No, not quite. So we take his ideas, but I'm on the committee, but I'm not chairing the committee. The chairman had his own ideas and his own bill. About half of the ideas that Brad had ended up in the bill. And he got a lot of what he wanted. Not a lot. No, I mean, there was argument. Like some of them were like, no, vote for that. We didn't get what we wanted. We didn't get everything we wanted. And then some were like, yeah, we got what we wanted, enough of what we wanted, but we didn't get it. You know what I mean? Because we didn't get quite enough, we shouldn't have taken it. Were you in the, because you don't get everything you want. And so initially in regular session, the superintendent's backed off in the last second and said, we don't like it. Is it better? Yeah, it's better, but it's not what we want. Okay. And maybe it wasn't better at all. Some people, I don't know. But I know Brad and a lot of others are telling me they think it was much better. You may disagree. This is the problem that representative democracy, because you read it one way, I read it another. My job is to try to get with the smart people, explain to them what we can do, and then try to work through a very complicated process. And it's a very complicated process with 30 million people in the state. And then there's Harris County. We don't want to get into Harris County. Now, the problems we get, we do it with 4 or 5 million people in Harris County, they're crazy. But anyway, so I just say that to say this should be a start of something, but if you're ADD or you're not willing to work something, don't get started. If you really want to fix it, I will work with you. We got very good staff. Bob Payton has been, he was school board president in Wichita Falls, and I'm very fortunate to have him. He's doing it not because he paid a huge amount of money, it's because he wants to make an impact. I will have Jim Johnson, who was my chief of staff for 9 years and then became the county judge in Wichita Falls, decided he hated being county judge, but that's bad news for Wichita County. It's good news for me because he's about to be my chief of staff again. So he is very good at what he does as well. That's a semi-good thing about him having done this for a while. So I think we'll be in a good position to get stuff done. But I need you to tell me what that looks like. I will try to tell you how to get stuff done through the legislature and try to get it done the best I can. I don't have a $35 million check I can write you. And the state doesn't do it. Some of that, but we do some. And I do think we have enough assets being Charles Perry in that position, but we need to do it this session. It's in every session. Every time I finish a session, I swear I'm not coming back. Every time, I swear. And you ask, yeah. And I think that's because every session is completely different, by the way. And I end up going, is there stuff I can work on good? And is this still right for me and my family? So, any other questions? I'll stick around and ask. If y'all you don't want to ask publicly, I will stick around and ask those. Go ahead.
So are you still chairing the disease prevention and children and women's health committee?
Technically, yes, but
Do you see anything coming up in that area?
if you look at the way the legislature is, they're only chair really during session because there's nothing to chair when you're not in session. So the real question is, what will that likely be next session? Because every session is completely standalone. Literally the first day you vote on a speaker. You may not even have the same speaker. In this case, I think there's no question you will have the same speaker. Justin Burroughs will be speaker. So I feel very comfortable with that. I also feel very comfortable I think I'll be chairing probably the health committee, which is the chair and the committee I'll still chair of also. So I don't think there's anything in particular on the women and disease that is coming up. But I think there'll be a lot on healthcare.
Okay.
You know, it's hard. The Medicaid stuff, which is what everybody focuses on, affects 5 million people. And nobody pays attention to the 25 million people that are getting. I mean, I want these people, the 5 million people on Medicaid, to have the best service they can. They're not paying anything for it. The 25 million people are paying for it and still getting most. And that's a problem. It's not okay. But everybody in government just wants to the government just wants to focus on the government funding. And by the way, the government funding and the lack of funding on the Medicaid is part of the reason that you're getting overcharged on their commercial, which is not good. So I'm a finance guy. It's funny, I got into the healthcare for a number of reasons. I got really mad when I realized how bad my insurance company was lying to me about what they were paying on my behalf or on my employees' behalf. And I realized they were lying. Literally, this is how gross it is. They buy your drugs for your employees. They buy it from a company called a PBM that nobody knows about, Pharmacy Benefit Manager, that they own a part of, and they get a kickback. But when they tell you, school district, hey, we paid $1 million for your employees for drugs, what they don't tell you is they bought the drugs from the PBM that then gave them a $250,000 kickback. But then they charge you 20% on top of $1 million for your premiums. It's the grossest. I mean, I've been in tons of meetings. I'm not a favorite, you might imagine, in the hospitals, the PBMs, or the insurance companies. But it's so gross. I said that every time I get involved in healthcare costs, I got to go take a shower after I finish it. So it could be something like if everybody's read their mission statement and did it, it would be done. But everybody reads the mission statement and goes and does something else. It's, sorry, it's a little rant. What's that? What other comments, questions? I know it was a frustrating thing when you deal with politics, it really is. I do think you have to go back and say, we could live in, we could live in the many parts of the world where nobody cares at all. You may think nobody cares, but you're only 2,000, you are 2,000, and when you partner with another 2,000, another 2,000, that is kind of how you have to figure out how to get things done. So,
Where you think you're.
that's good. I gave you permission, literally, it has been really fun. In the issue that was at the end of the line, where we kept running out of, every time I would get one, guess who I would text? Have the Red River Water Authority say, why are they out of water again? Why are they out of water again? Why are they out of water again? So you can be tricky, but I can be tricky. You can be the squeaky wheel, and then that lets me be the squeaky wheel. That's the way representative democracy doesn't work if you don't, really, if you're not the squeaky wheel. I will say, don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. Like, I mean, I've been cussed out by great folks, but I don't, I will try to help them, but like, I'm trying the best I can. But doesn't mean you have to be nice to me. I always have two types of people that act like they're politicians that I'm touching when you should never say anything bad about. And then people that act like all you should do is just rip them because the fact that they went with politics makes them an evil person. And I'm like, not quite that way. All right. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna stick around if you like.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.